Hey guys, it's Matt. I was down in Collegeville, Pennsylvania helping Pam. I just got back and I passed two high schools on the way back, and there were a lot of teams practicing in sports teams. The two teams that I could clearly see, both teams were practicing and both were fully in masks. Now I'm outside of Philadelphia. Hopefully it's better where you are. There couldn't be well, certain I was going to say there couldn't be too much places worse than the Northeast. This I-95 corridor from DC to Boston, California, I'm sure parts of California is worse, and of course Australia and parts of the EU is worse. But there couldn't be too many other places worse. Um, in terms of the high school baseball team, some of them had it pulled down as they were warming up, just throwing balls back and forth. Everybody was 10, 15 feet apart from each other, but most of the team was fully masked up, throwing baseballs back and forth. Guys, the reality itself has shifted. I do believe this. If that sounds crazy to you, then you haven't looked at this stuff for enough years. There's almost no other way to explain it, even from a common sense perspective. Everything we knew about the world is gone. It is in the past. I believe we live in one gigantic Mandela effect where the movie line changes and the Kit Kat dashes are just symptoms or traces of a much greater shift in reality itself. Talked about the cement hardening going into the winter solstice of the last winter solstice, the cement hardening. Somebody told me cement doesn't harden, it cures, whatever. It did harden around most people. It was, I was saying that, the astrological milestone that, according to Levet and others that really know what they're talking about, they put so much stock in, is the winter solstice, particularly this one with the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction, where supposedly Jupiter, I don't know if it was all at once or slowly, loses its astrological power and Saturn gains in power. But we were kind of hoping if there was cement to dry or wet cement that needed to cure, we were hoping we would at least, from their creepy astrological perspective, we would at least have till the next eclipse, which I believe it's either April of 2024 or August of 2024. I think August was the first one, so it's probably April. It's hardened. It's hardened around most people, and it has not hardened around us. But the best way to look at that is using the ship of fools in the river of insanity example. You could say the cement didn't harden around us. We can just step out of the cement, the boots in the cement. We can just step out. But it seems like a better analogy is we're on the bank, rooted to an old reality, the way a Mandela affected person would clearly remember Dolly with braces in the James Bond Moonraker, remember everything. That's a Mandela effect, anchor effect for them. That never existed in reality itself. So we're on the bank, I've said it a million times. The river is sailing away. So it's two ways to say it. You could say that the cement has hardened on most people that you know. They're now fully in line and marching with the frequency of the new reality. Or you could say that they are on the ship of fools, on the river of insanity, and it's continuing to move. It's continuing to shift and morph and moving farther and farther away from us, where we're kind of rooted to what once was. And it probably works just like the Mandela effect. There is no date of change. There is no something you could point at and say, oh, this is when everything changed, because once it happens, unfortunately, if it is working like a Mandela effect, and I think it is, I think the high school team being just fine out there now in the spring, a year later, completely going along with everything, even as high school kids, just it's not like the old excuse. I was going to say the old excuses, from our perspective, don't work anymore. Like, Matt, these high school kids are afraid to push back on their coach, and see, I don't. It's not that the reality has moved somewhere and they are just simply on the ship with it. It's completely normal to them. Most If you would go make an announcement, you're allowed if you'd like to take your mask off, throwing your baseballs back and forth and just throw it on the ground and never use it out here on these practice fields for the rest of the season. Many of them would probably choose not to throw it down. This is where I get back into that same old thing where I get this crap from people that if your little section of Idaho or South Dakota and your little hardware store, you can go in without a mask. Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. People give me shit. Well, Matt, you're supposed to be representing us, and you admit you wear a mask when you go into a grocery store. I'll say it one more time. I'll probably end up saying it one more time, but you don't understand certain parts of the United States how it is, certain parts of Australia how it is, certain parts of the EU how everybody literally is on a download. The people, I'll say it one more time, the people shopping outside of Philadelphia in big supermarkets or whatever, they're not dying to throw their mask down and wait for somebody to walk in, like Jerry Maguire writing his memo or an mission statement. And what's his rival's name in Jerry Maguire? Bob Sugar. Yeah, Bob Sugar. Bob's, they're all clapping. Oh, finally, Jerry Maguire. Somebody said it. Somebody said how we really feel, but we were just afraid to say it. Well, they threw him under the bus the next day and fired him. They'll clap. Fine. Nobody. It's not like finally somebody was big enough to walk in without a mask. They're completely on the ship of fools. They're completely on the frequency of the new reality. There might be a few people that would love somebody to take the lead and to walk into a Pennsylvania or Philadelphia grocery store without a mask and say, "Oh, if he does it, then I'll do it." They don't, but most people they don't. They're not. It's not like that. You guys don't get that by now, or some of you just don't understand that. They would hate the person that walked in without the mask. It's invasion of the body snatchers. These people have been body snatched. They're on the ship. They're on the frequency of the new reality. It is a reality shift. For those that are acting in a certain way or doing a certain thing, like how I talk about Tony, for example, my Tony, not the Tony that gives me incredible advice on occult and esoteric issues and how reality really works and higher self, incarnation in this reality stemming from higher self. Not that Tony, the Tony that argues with me that it's completely normal that there were 3 McDs with Happy Meal served up in Hong Kong from January of 2020 through July of 2020. Just 3 big McDs with Happy Meal. I don't want to get a banner ad. And see, now we find out this week. I just found out that Vietnam has 35 McDs without Happy Meal. 35 McDs. In the whole, so I sent that to people. Like, why are you sending it to Tony, Matt? You idiot! Yeah, I am. I am an idiot. I am an idiot. But honestly, the main reason I do it is just to gauge how insane the response is when it comes back. That is the primary reason I do it. No, I'm not expecting wake up. Oh, this one's really going to wake him up. Send. No, I'm not expecting wake up. I'm saying, okay, so I sent it 35 McD's with Happy Meal. And I said, I remind you that same thing as usual. In November, December of 2019, I have to put it in terms, of course, they can understand. I can't get, they know how conspiratorial I am, but I can't get too conspiratorial. In November and December of 2019, when this thing was running rampant in Wuhan, and you have to understand, people in Vietnam, they do business, lots of business, lots of thousands of people potentially going back and forth, migrant workers. Just like Hong Kong had potentially 5,000 people a day going back and forth between Wuhan and Hong Kong. Five to 10,000 a day potentially with the amount of business being done. And this is when it was unchecked, December, January 2019 into 2020. So I sent it to him and I said, guys, do you see how impossible this is? Reminding them that people actually do go back and forth, and thousands of people are going back and forth doing business, and their major cities have slums, and where 10 people are living in an apartment built for 3. And he said he ran the same script It's just, guys, the reality, there has been a complete reality shift, in my opinion. I don't. I mean, it's almost. I mean, I'm 100% on that. I'm going to keep saying my opinion, but there's no other way to explain it. He said the same thing he said about China. Matt, I've told you before, an authoritarian government can take away rights, can force people just in their apartments, can force. I mean, I've gone through this guy so many times, but what are we going to do? I'll cry on your shoulder, you cry on mine. One last time. He says, it's so like a magical police force can go out and control millions upon millions of people, and they can put forth perfect compliance. There's no people with Forrest Gump intelligence. There's no criminals. There's no people that don't give a crap. There's not hundreds of thousands. There's even if people that really want to do the right thing, 10 per apartment, apartment for three, 10 squeezed in there, in the slum areas or the poor areas. So even if everybody wanted perfect compliance, there's just situationally on the ground in the cities of Vietnam, it can't be accomplished. There's sanitation issues. It's probably not Bangalore or certain parts of Delhi, where their slums are literally tent cities where people are sharing a hole, in the airport, flight pattern and things like that. But there, just like any big cities, Vietnam's going to have its issues. But according to Tony, an authoritarian government can force, Matt, can take away rights and force a perfect compliance. I call it now the fallacy of perfect compliance. These people put forth the fallacy of perfect compliance, but it is, from our perspective, insane to say it's just completely normal that 30 you can serve up 35 McDs in Vietnam, and that's just, see, again, I'll say it one more time. It is normal. It is normal in the new reality. That's just completely normal for where the ship of fools has sailed to, where the reality itself has gone, probably with Dolly not having braces as a side effect. From our perspective, rooted somewhere else, their responses, their scripted responses, their downloaded responses are insane. Insane. And if somebody's saying, well, Matt, if it is, like you've mentioned, if it is a download or they're literally running a script, then is it a download and running a script, or is that just normal for the new reality? I hear you. Then you get into semantics. I don't know. A combination of the both. There's things going on here we simply don't understand. We simply don't understand. But, how ridiculous does it have to get? The good news, guys, is, and there isn't a whole lot of good news. There is a little bit of good news. I'll need to present that. The cement has hardened on these people, and they're not coming back. They're not. I will never ever be able to find, say, a middle ground with Tony on these types of issues. We might be able to go back and talk about high school football, baseball, glory days and Penn State and things like. But we'll never ever, in terms of what's going on now or what we see or consider to be fake, there will never ever be a middle ground. The ship has sailed on these people, and from their perspective, they would be right. The ship has sailed on us. From their perspective, we're a ship going in the other direction that's equally as insane. Who's right? Who's wrong? Or the Legolas event, Orlando Bloom in Kingdom of Heaven, all have claim. None have claim. It's the same here. We're not right. In fact, it's almost they have more claim than, per the reality and what it's become, they have more claim than we do. Their take is normal. Ours is insane because our ability to logically think through what should happen if the situation is what the news says it is, we just base that on everything we remember. And I even said to him, I said, well, if I were, I don't think it's Mandela affected the movie. Can I even say the movie name? I'll say the movie with Lawrence Fishburne and Matt Damon and what's her name, Gwyneth Paltrow, called Contagion. I don't think that's been Mandela affected. If I go back and watch it now, and they absolutely pushed that movie big time last March and April, just to put it into everybody's head so everybody would help manifest it, no doubt about it. But it shows Gwyneth Paltrow just spending, I think, just a few days in Hong Kong and then one flight. One flight. I mentioned this in a video not long ago, but one flight, and it's now become unchecked. This person ran into this 10 people, this person had contact with 20 people, and it's all now it's exponentially unchecked. So this is a case against, well, that if it's a new reality and it's completely normal for Tony, for example, where the cement has hardened on his take on reality, if it's completely normal for him to believe that there can be just 35 McDs in Vietnam, then what would he say? It's a good question. What would he say about the movie Contagion? He might look at it and say, "That's not how things spread." Look. One person go. That's from our understanding of, and I don't want to get into germ theory and all that. Obviously, guys, just what our understanding of what a V was our entire lives. I'm not going to. Let's just not stray from that for the purpose of this discussion. So the movie Contagion with Lawrence Fishburne shows what we understood, you know, how things spread. Again, I don't want to get into germ theory, exosomes, and all that. I'm well aware of it. But would he watch the movie and be like, why is it showing that a guy can get on a bus and spread it all? That's not how things work now in the reality. Would the movie Contagion be out of touch with the reality itself? I don't think so. But I don't know. It's like some people saying, "Well, Matt, again, don't go off your original theory. If you're talking about a download where they're simply getting their belief set from somewhere else, then it might not be as much as the whole reality has changed, which I do believe we're living in a gigantic Mandela effect where the reality itself, as the ship moves down the river, the reality itself is flowing with the ship, becoming more and more foreign to us on the bank. I do believe that, and I'm not even close to ever moving off that. I'm open to moving off it someday. But somebody might say, well, it's less that, and it is more if your own concept, Matt, the download or running of scripts. If that's the case, you don't need a whole reality shift, Matt. People can be like Tony can be meant to believe whether the thought is coming into their head that's not even theirs, not even derived from themselves, that Vietnam, that's completely normal, Matt, because don't you understand how authoritarian army and police could keep everything in check and keep it from, and you can go out and watch videos. There's a ridiculous video about Vietnam that shows how patient one was brought in and they spent all this money on patient one, and what? I mean, like it's the video talks about all this stuff. And he was very ill. He almost died. And he was saved, and then Vietnam mobilized quickly. Again, it would be, if anything were real, it would be more like the movie with Lawrence Fishburne and Matt Damon, Contagion. Trying to avoid a batter ad, where you have just the amount of ship captains coming in, ship crews. China Ocean Shipping Company. You think they have any? You think they have any container ships coming and going to Vietnam, buying and selling? Maersk, Evergreen. The shipping. Forget the flights, flight crews, flight attendants. There's thousands coming and going. You can't, even if you could lock down the apartments the way Tony believes or whatever. What about the thousands of foreign nationals and expatriates and migrant workers and tourists? They had the famous story about Vietnam was that they sent 80,000 tourists home. 80 that this was, I should have done a little bit of research on that because I knew this would come up because of Vietnam, but it was at least, guys, it was at least 3 or 4 months into the full-blown thing of what we're involved in. So I would say, if I had to guess, when they sent the 80,000 tourists home, probably like May or June. I mean, we're fully into the world is fully into this thing. But the story was there were a few cases that popped up, and because of a few cases, they had nothing before. Of course, that makes perfect sense with Wuhan and all this stuff, and they had nobody going back and forth. They had nothing, but then in May or June or whenever it was relatively early on, but enough months had passed where there should have been, if anything, about this is real, there should be tens of thousands of cases. So a few cases, and they just said we need to send 80,000 tourists home. But the point is that proves there were 80,000 tourists coming and going for at least 3 months before that. Nobody, They said, what was it called, the R naught value or whatever. The spreadability, we were told, was double. you know and again, you just, I don't know what he would say if Tony was sitting here and saying, well, this thing is supposed to be. Remember what happened with Italy and all this doom and gloom and lockdowns in Australia. People can't even leave their Melbourne neighborhood. Just for if you get permission, you can leave it for an hour a day. But so you have 80,000 tourists coming and going for several months, right in the middle of this thing, and nobody thinks like somebody's going to sneak in that might have it. Like, and then that just catches Vietnam by surprise, and they send 80,000 people home. And of course, guys, anybody trying to talk to me right now, it's all a master script. Every bit of this thing was planned out before it even started. Of course, we live in a gigantic, and it's not just this. The whole reality is a reality play, a reality script. Is becoming more and more like that. Um, More and more people reading their cue cards, more and more people reading their lines, less ability to stray from the script as every successive year goes on. This is where we are unique as Izzo's open source entities versus, think about a closed source entity would be, something that is designed, or let's just, I'm talking about programs, guys. For those, not everybody might not be familiar with that. So let me just do another minute or two on that. Our friend and very, very important contributor to this channel, Izzo, put forth, Matt, in explaining human beings, because you're looking at the analogy of comparing the overarching reality itself to actually how your desktop computer system works. He said, I agree with what you're saying the USB port is, what you're saying the operating system is, and the hard drive and the screen and who's the programmer. A few disagreements, but for the most part, he agrees with me. But he said, remember, the beings here, the entities themselves, you have open source beings, that's anybody watching this, and me, and closed sourced beings. So the closed source programs would be like a Microsoft Excel or something that comes from Microsoft Word or Windows, and you get what they give you. You can't make changes to it. You can't add to it or enhance it or improve it because it's all right out of the factory. It's coded. Every bit of it is coded and locked in. There's no parameters for change. Where in open source programming and operating system or programs would be Linux, where somebody could just jump right on the Linux, and even whether they share it with the world or not, they could improve their own system or change the color of something or change the icons and make them larger so grandma can see them. Could do things whether they decide to share it with the community or not. But we're open source beings where we're able to just jump off if we have a float on the river, we're able to get off the river. We still are very influenced, we still succumb to peer pressure, no doubt about it. We still have veils to drop, we still are likely all still subject to a degree to the download. It's probably but it's hitting us far less. We're able to say, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. I'm jumping off I was going to say Huckleberry, Tom Sawyer, and Huck Finn's canoe. Can you even say that anymore? Maybe that's Primate Beach, which is a code for things you can't say anymore, because I think those books are banned worldwide because of got anyway. Sorry, you can't. Who knows what you can say anymore on this platform? But you can jump off the raft and then swim to the bank, and then you can watch the ship sail. You're open source being. You're able to maybe some people are coming late to the party, but can recognize things aren't quite right, or I'm setting my own destiny now. I'm not gonna read these cue cards that have been shoved into my hand anymore. And where the closed source being would be completely, it's just an element inside the program. Of course, they're not going to be susceptible to the download. They are on the download. They're running the scripts, and I talked about that a few videos back, and I just wanted to mention that again, because it does explain why we, the cement. They're trying to cure the cement around our feet, but we're just able to step out of it. We're able to just, it doesn't work on us. Also the analogy of the flowing river, just sucking people down the river, where they say 2 weeks ago, oh, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to rent the movie. I'm just going to wait. And then you call them back and, oh, yeah, we did it. We're going to go to Disney World. And if the Savior is if the Golden God is the action movie, then why are people still wearing the mask? Like, well, what's the point? I don't know, guys. It's just the main point is we don't none of us recognizes the world, and I believe it actually is literal reality. It's got a tail to the nose. Literal reality shift. Um, I believe it acts like a Mandela effect, or we're in one gigantic Mandela effect, where again to the Mandela affected, you see that Dolly had braces in a reality where Moonraker had that, but to somebody that's not affected, they would clearly remember seeing Moonraker as a kid, and they would say, "Well, what are you talking about? Dolly never had braces," and of course they would be right. I would be wrong. The Mandela effect would be wrong. There's no reality here that ever shows Dolly had braces. Dolly having braces, that's she's like on my cord here. That's completely wrong. There's no evidence of that other than what you guys are believing you remember. I mean, how wishy-washy is that? So it's the same, with what's going on now. This is Tony would drive by the baseball team and they're warming up in masks, the whole varsity team, and wouldn't think anything of it. It's completely normal. The fact, well, what about if you could tap on the shoulder? What about the fact that nobody's even 20 feet? They're just throwing baseballs back and forth, warming up. No one's even close to each other. Again, that's just our noticing of that is the problem. It's just completely normal to these people, just flowing along with the frequency, moving along with wherever the reality goes. So, little bit of good news, I guess. Zara, you're gonna have to move a bit here. Sorry, guys. Um, the little bit of good news is they can't. And if you say, well, they're going to turn this. Things have changed very, very quickly in our world, Matt. And if things keep going, I won't even recognize the world, and I don't think they can keep the dial turned to this level, because the reason I mention that is you just look at the way they've done business before, and our best, excuse me, the tail of the face kind of does this. The best example would be when y'all filled out the 7-Eleven job application. Pretty big thing if you remember that day, 2001, and then a lot of stuff came very, very quickly. There was there was a plane crash in New York. There was the anthrax. There was the orange code, the red code, the blue code. I'm sorry, guys. I used to be allergic to cats. I'm much improved, but I get a little. One jumps on my lap. I get a little bit like this. Um, Thank goodness I got over that. It'd be tough with these two long hairs. But there was the anthrax, the orange code, the yellow code, the red code. Then we, after that, relatively quickly had the underwear bomber, and which name was like Richard Reed, the shoe bomber. No, that was Richard Reed, the idiot, was the shoe bomber, and then but the underwear guy was even bigger idiot, and got obviously none of these were real. I mean, obviously, it's just something that was crafted for the 6:30 presentation after your local news. Nobody tried to do anything. It's all part of the script. But they hit us with a lot of stuff. And then what happened? For a 20-year period, it smoothed. It leveled out. In other words, this is very, very similar, or it really resonates with me when Levette talks about, in doing your astrological chart, you'll say your Saturn return, the Jupiter to Saturn conjunction every 20 years. they do business by the stars in their astrology. And, I said months back they can't keep the pedal to the metal. And of course, I'm surprised how they have been keeping the pedal to the metal as much as they have in terms of like all in. I mean, I'm really surprised. But it can't, you look back to when you filled out the 7-Eleven job application, a lot of stuff in the first 2 or 3 years, and then Iraq, Afghanistan, the whole Saddam Hussein, and it just okay, yeah, you had to keep taking your shoes off, and there was a lot of hassle going to the airports, and they have they this thing happened on a train in Europe, and all these other events that didn't really happen, but it leveled. It wasn't like pedal to the metal. The RPMs came back from a red line. They came back to 3,500 or whatever, or they came back to 3,000, and they leveled for the to the next cycle. And I think this is going to be similar. I think the cement's hardening, and it's hardened on people. It's hardened on people this time. That's what's so scary and terrifying. We don't recognize the people around us. We're after the 7-Eleven, excuse me, guys, after the 7-Eleven job application, people still seem like people. They might have had major disagreements on whether we should be in Afghanistan and things like that, but you would never say like you didn't recognize your wife or you didn't recognize your best friend. Where now, what was done. Everything is on steroids or to the 10th power, and it's affecting people. And the reality shifts are much, much to the 10th power more than they were, if there were any at all. And I think reality is always shifting, always fluid to a degree. It's again now to the 10th power on steroids, almost like they're behind schedule or something, which they may be. But again, they don't. This is where you get into the truth community, this nonsense that comes up about well, we're all gonna die and then this and that and the end of the world and all this. I mean, come on, they don't do business like. There's no evidence whatsoever that they do business like that. They do business over the long term, 20-year cycles, solstice, the Saturn to Jupiter conjunctions, trying to create their own little mini tribulation inside the eclipses. And well, Matt, mini tribulation, we don't have much time left. I don't buy it. I don't buy any. I much more believe that the pedal to the metal will continue for a little while longer, and then wherever the meter rests at, they'll have to coast that out, ride with that until the next astrological opportunity. Maybe it won't be. Some would say, Matt, maybe it's not going to be another 20 years for Saturn and Jupiter to flip flop. It's going to be the eclipse in 2024, maybe, but they'll have to. It's going to level to a degree, but when it levels, it's not like people. Tony's not going to return to the Tony that I remember. He's now reset to a new reality. The cement on his whole being, in my opinion, has hardened, and it has not on us. But you have to be again the little things, which somebody's saying, Matt, that what you're about to say is not a little thing about the having to show your phone to get into a concert to say, oh, you rented the movie and all. But guys, again, there's going to be pockets of the United States and of pockets of the world, much smaller pockets than I ever thought. They covering a whole lot more than I thought they'd be able to. But there'll be pockets where, in places in the middle of the United States that just, are just not doing this. They're not sending their baseball teams out with masks, and the cement just won't have hardened on them. And I think if where you live has become a hell, a permanent hell, then we'll have to find those places. We also need to create like a brotherhood, a name, like a community. We need to do this now. Maybe that'll be the back end of this video. And maybe I should have a better example than this, and I don't have even any relatives that were in the Marines. But it's just a story I've heard where obviously, when a Marine, you know, bumps up against another Marine, there's obviously some camaraderie there. There would have to be. Um, if a certain, is the lack of for a dumb example, the movie The A Team. B.A. Baracus bumps into what's his name, Hannibal Smith, and they don't like each other, and then all of a sudden they realize they're both Rangers. Oh, there's a brother, their long lost brotherhood. So that's going to be us. And if you have only 3 or 4 or 5 friends left, and if you're me, you have none that are locally, like friends you have a history with going back to college or high school, none. Well, how many thousands do you need? Because if the I don't have any names prepared. The like the brotherhood that can see, or the brotherhood on the bank, or the brotherhood that's not on the ship of fools. And should we get little tattoos? No, like Ranger, no, but there's got to be some way um, we can identify each other, and you know, then we'll have thousands of friends. Too many people. So what's even if it's just 1% in the end of the day, or less than 1%. I mean, that's just millions of people just inside this country, millions. So, no, Matt, that would be 3 million. Okay, whatever. But it's a lot. It's more friends than we could ever need or want. So it's not as dire as it seems. I don't think they're going to, impose, what is it called? Code 66 from the third Star Wars of the middle three, where all of a sudden the soldiers received a download and they just went, oh, little Yoda's my friend here. And then I got the implement code 66 and like immediately trying to get Yoda and blow him away, and they just immediately turned on the Jedi. I don't think they're gonna do a code 66 and try to David Koresh or Waco us. You know I don't think so. Um, for a few reasons, but it's really bad now. But how good is it if you I don't, again, if this brotherhood is created, those that have not rented the movie or what, I don't know what the code is going to be, and I don't recommend tattoos on the arm like Marine or Ranger or whatever, but there's going to be a brotherhood, a camaraderie. That is, I mean, that's something that's pretty exciting to look forward to. Um, Again, I've told the story when Penn State, when I went in '92, it was 98%, 97% white. Um, Probably 2% black, 1% whatever. You know, middle smack in the middle of Pennsylvania, equidistant from Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, red state country, whatever. So I've told this before. When we were on the bus, which was called the Loop, that would go around the campus, because some buildings it would be a 25-minute walk. It was so big. It's way bigger now. That was when I was there. And there'd be a black person on the bus with sitting next to me or my friends, and again, there's you only saw 1 or 2 black people in each one of your classes. That's just the way it was. There wasn't many black people. But when another black person would get on the bus, they didn't know each other, but they would signal to each other. There's nothing wrong with that. The same way, if I was just expatriated if I had a corporate job and they just plopped me in the middle of I don't know, somewhere really remote. I was going to say Shanghai, but that's it's full of expatriates. That's ridiculous. Someplace in, I don't know, let's say like on the other side of the Three Gorges Dam in China, on the good side. Like Wang here just helped me buy a real estate. Rodney Dangerfield says in Caddyshack, I just bought land on the other side of the Great Wall, on the good side. Well, that's where they relocated you, on the other side of the Three Gorges Dam, but on the good side, and there wouldn't be a white person there inside, or whatever, an American, let's just say, forget race, an American for 1,000 miles, and you came across another American. Of course, there'd be tremendous camaraderie. There'd be immediate friendship or whatever. But so maybe that's what it will evolve into for us. That's pretty interesting and exciting to think about. I only need like five good friends. I don't need thousands. So you know we don't there's again guys, once the if we can do something with this camaraderie, and then this is, they're not too thrilled about this. They're going to want to, they're not going to, sorry, it's just she's not biting the cord. um then this does, I'm sure, concern them, and they've done a masterful job at keeping us broken up, keeping us completely separated. I don't know how they do it. A lot of people are in the situation I'm in, like, hey, there's 1,000 people here I could email back and forth with, and over time there's probably been 1,000 people I'm emailed back and forth with over many, many years. But how many people? There have been some people locally that said, "Hey, Matt, we can grab a beer." But how many people are like, in my vicinity? Like one, actually. Lee, one. So it's like they do a masterful job at keeping us separated, where they have. Zara, stop! No, 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 no. She biting the cord. Down, down. Am I still here? I guess. So, if we ever do start moving together into these communities or whatever, I mean, they're not gonna like that. Matt, maybe they will David Koresh you. I don't know. I don't think they're capable of that. Um, Even what happened there, I don't buy it. I don't. I'm much more these major presentations of things that happened in what's called our history. I see almost all of it as fake. I don't see it as something that really happened. I'm just kind of, as I keep observing, I'm much more leaning this way. Like, what happened to, in the Ford's Theater, with John Wilkes Booth and Lincoln, and some people would say that was a ritualistic thing and per their astrology, and I don't buy it. To me, it's just it's an act, and a literal act in a play. I don't believe most of these things are real anymore. Like David Bowie, after making Black Star and Lazarus, passing, I don't believe he died. Most celebrity deaths, I don't believe, that a lot of the truth community will come back. Matt, that's the payback. That's signing their name in blood, the deal with the devil. The payback, the ritualistic killing. Maybe I'll change my opinion. I don't buy it. I believe most of it is fake. Most of the big presentations if it's a big presentation on the news or in our history, it's pretty much fake. Um, doesn't what does that mean? The Civil War is fake? No, I believe real battles were fought, but the reasons were cooked up. The reasons are fake. They got this group all riled up over here. They got this group all riled up over here. They inserted their own people. As I said, General Lee, I mean, it's so obvious to see he wasn't looking out for the South, just lining up his armies to get slaughtered. He would have immediately gone into a guerrilla tactics or done different things. Taken the gray coat. If you take the gray coat off, you blend in. You're not too easy to kill if you take the gray coat off. You put the gray coat on, that's a bullseye. It just doesn't. The whole strategy doesn't make any sense. They put their people in where they needed to, and they presented a civil war. There could be, certainly could be, several major elements that didn't take place the way Ken Burns said they took place. But I don't believe the fringe element of the truth community would say, oh, that's even they even go farther than me and say that's fake. And no, if you look at, I mean, even, I was going to say, do they like death? Yeah, I mean, Vietnam. I was a kid, but my a kid I went to at the time was at, I guess it was sixth or seventh grade. Just lived a few doors down in the apartment complex. His father came back, well, a few years before that, came back from Vietnam. And I mean, obviously, when they talk about 60,000 dead in Vietnam, there were 60,000 dead in Vietnam. It's not faked. What do they do they do they create the scenario where they create death? Yeah, they do that. So I don't understand the take on the 7-Eleven part-time job event, saying that the good people in the Illuminati center in the Chernobyl control center, they just made sure that the World Trade Center was completely cleared out before they did it. I mean, they're just, I guess, just good people looking out for us, because they've never shown that they like death or anything like that. No, no, they've all the wars that have been cooked up going back centuries. Nah, they're looking to save lives. So, I mean, is it possible, the way those buildings were and the occupancy, that the whole building was basically 50% unoccupied? Or sure, it could have been, you know, um, have people recently really, really given me lectures on all sides about how ridiculous karma is, the idea of a personal karma. But I think there's a difference between a personal karma and whatever you call karma from their perspective. If it was so, if it was, why are they always out to get a human being to doom themselves? You know, and what is there from their perspective, a karma issue? And if somebody, I can hear somebody yelling at me now saying, well, no, Matt, a powerful being, the only way to truly doom themselves is for them to choose it. They don't have the power to do it. And that is more likely. But anyway, so in other words, there's just reasons I still believe in why they would not, um, let's just say they split the difference. Certainly plenty of death was served up, but maybe the building was 50% empty. When people talk about buildings being completely empty, I just think that is absurd to me, because you have to understand, there was at least one or two there was at least two train stops, like a whole subway stop dedicated to the WTC, as well as maybe even a PATH train. I'm not, that familiar with New York transit system, where in its heyday, 50,000 people would come and go, and there would be vendors, like people selling Starbucks, people selling, whatever, just all sorts of vendors, people to sell to these people. So just nobody noticed when, just the subway stop that a month or two before had thousands of people coming and going, just a ghost town down there. Nobody talked about it, just completely normal. Nobody going up the escalator. I mean, yeah, I was in the buildings. Zara, please don't turn the video off. I was in the buildings. It's just thousands. If you've never been to New York City, you just have no idea how crowded, or maybe it used to be. I don't know what it's like now. But you'd be waiting to cross the street, um, and there'd be 30, 40 people piling up right next to you to cross the street, like a huge group of people ready to cross the street. And I'm talking like 2 in the afternoon, not even rush hour, depending on where you are. Not even, not Times Square, several blocks, Avenue of the Americas or whatever. It's crowded. And one of the things that drove the crowds down there in Lower Manhattan was the WTC, the 7 buildings and the train stops. If there was nobody down there, I mean, thousands upon thousands of people would have been noticing it and talking about it. It's absurd. Maybe they got the numbers down as much as they could, or whatever, for a karma issue. I don't know how to explain it, but to say they were empty, and then the whole subway stop was just flowing with thousands and thousands of people, just nobody there, just nobody noticed. It just, I don't know, these people that say that, they've never been to New York City. They just don't understand how impossible that would be. The towers were just shells. I mean, come on, dude. Yeah. People think I'm faking it when I say my cousin. I lived in San Francisco with my cousin, and his best friend. I'll say the name. I guess his name's written up there. His name's George. His name was George McLaughlin. My cousin's best friend. They went to the University of Hartford together. He was supposed to come visit my cousin or visit us in San Francisco. Had a flight for, I think, the end of September. And just 3 or 4 weeks later, maybe early October. And he was some sort of commodities broker or something up in the top, or towards the top of North Tower. And my cousin got a call, and the day after, said nobody's heard from George. And that was my cousin's friends with the entire family, unless they're all in on it. They're all faking it. Matt's faking it too, just presenting the story. That was it. Never heard from him again. well, see, I don't think he's on David Bowie's own private Idaho. I think he was killed. Is that so hard to fathom? That they will, these people, the minions are so nice, they'll just go out of their way to protect human life. No. And if they did that, they'll hopefully pay a price, a very serious price for that someday. So I don't know why I started talking about this, guys. Honestly, I guess I better wrap it up. But I drove by the baseball fields and the practicing, and they're all in masks, and I just went, it's hardened. It's hardened for the cement has hardened on most people around us, and they're never going to step out of it. This is the new reality moving forward. The ship will continue to sail away. We will grow more and more apart. If it, I don't think the ship's going to continue to sail as fast. I think, like we talked about, the 20-year period, how they do business, the 7-Eleven event, it was redlined and then it smoothed out. Oh, you still have to take your shoes off and all this, and life had changed. I told you I was filming on a SEPTA R5 line, the regional rail line, Philadelphia. It's called the Thorndale line to 30th Street Station. Filming, and somebody, I guess it was 4 or 5 years after, maybe 6 years or 7 years after the event, somebody said the conductor came and just sat right next to me and was like, and I was like, I knew what was going on. I'm like, are you kidding? Like, we had a communication. I put the video camera down. Somebody had complained, like, oh my gosh, somebody's filming a train. He must be working for Al Qaeda. I mean, come on. That is the new reality that was created in people. That level of fear. You can't just film out the window. You're working with some PLO organization or something. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Again, we didn't root to the new reality then. I was like, really? I should have turned around and then somebody was like, who complained to the conductor for me just shining my camera out the window? What's wrong with you people? Like, what would that have done, right? in the new reality, I'm the one that's insane, right? But it wasn't. It was just a little bit then. Now it's on steroids to the nth power. But guys, there is good news because there will be a camaraderie that develops over time. We need a way to name ourselves and then identify ourselves to each other. I want to say one thing. I'm just going to be total code here. I don't want the video to go down just because of this. But there, a certain community, lifestyle community associated with, associated with Rock Hudson and, San Francisco, certain community. Seinfeld episode said, not that there's anything wrong with that. You know what I'm talking about. They have ways, some very subtle, to identify. Matt, how do you know they have ways to communicate with each other? I've heard. Right? They have ways to communicate, or who's who, who's playing on what team. And sometimes it can be, but see, it's all over the place. It can be as blatant as a little bit of what comes out of the vocal inflection. I do impersonations, but I'm not going to go there. But it can be other. There can be also there's also subtle things where they know who's playing on what team, and we could do the same thing. Not like that, but we could do the same thing where we would just, I don't know, just kind of know if my friend Jeff, a contributor to the channel, and walked in with his dog Etta, we could identify each other like two men of the alternate, no, like two men that have identified long lost brothers, and like, Rowdy Piper had the sunglasses, and it's like, whoa, this guy's got the sunglasses. That, what will we have? Maybe we'll have you come in and talk in code, and you talk and present some sort of hobo code to order a latte or something at the Starbucks. Some sort of, you can't just say it directly. You talk in some sort of strange hobo code. He's like, he's speaking in the hobo code. That's like the witch's tongue from Dune, the witch's voice.
Remove my mother's mask.
Yeah, that she's covered in a mask. He takes it off and she's got the witch's voice. But here it's just the opposite. Put the mask on for the witch's voice. But it was that will be it's an identifying factor for the witches in Dune, as well as Paul Atreides. It will be an identifying factor for those that can see maybe certain types of code, or I don't know. I mean, I'm just talking on my ass. I don't know, but won't it be interesting? If you like, if a Rowdy Piper finding another Rowdy Piper that can see, you want to talk about real interesting camaraderie and make life very, very interesting, very, very quickly when we can work this out. That is good news. Anyway, there's always guys. There's always good news. There really is. You just have to see it in the right light. Thanks for listening, watching.